What's up, Rippa fans and Rippa fam? ND Andrew here, and we are back with the eighth, count 'em, eighth episode. We've been doing this for a minute now. Eighth episode of our artist podcast here at the Rippaverse Ctrl+Z. Welcome back, gentlemen of the panel, our illustrious illustrators here at the Rippaverse, and welcome back to all of you in the chat who've been so fantastic in supporting our fun little monthly art discussion. I just kind of get to sit here with three talented dudes who all know how to draw really well, and I get to absorb. And maybe someday I will also be able to draw better than stick figure really well. And yeah, you know what? Maybe, a boy can dream. A boy can dream. Yeah, I'll be talented someday. Kanan, Igor, and Marcos's talents will rub off on me at some point or another. It has to, right? I'll absorb through osmosis as best I can. But we are not here to worry about whether or not Andrew has any level of talent and creativity in his bones. We are here to learn and get insight from the actual talented people here. Kanan, our Rippaverse art director. Welcome back, brother.
Thank you, man. Glad to be back. What's up, chat?
Glad to have you. Igor, our lead illustrator, as well as one of our art editors here alongside Mr. White.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
And of course, the man behind just about every design you see for all the characters that come out in our books, Marcos Rios, our Rippaverse concept artist.
What's up?
Chickens included.
Just because he hates it.
Who doesn't like chicken?
They're part of it.
It's a package deal. There's no a la carte here. If you want Marcos, you're getting chickens, and that's okay. We like Marcos enough. We'll take the chickens. So, guys, we have a really great show planned for you this month. The theme for the art prompt was Memorial Day or something thereabouts. It obviously didn't have to be exactly Memorial Day, but something that is similar thematically. Real quick reminder, because we do not have any fan art pieces to go over this month, because I did not receive any emails with fan art pieces. As I instructed last episode, send those to andrew@rippaverse.com. Easiest email in the world to remember, andrew@rippaverse.com. That is where, if I see your fan art pieces, then we will pick from those and go through them as part of the monthly prompt. So guys, keep that in mind. And be on the lookout for later on in the show, the announcement of what next month's prompt will be. If you decide to participate in that, if you send it to my email.
If you send it, you'll see it.
Right? That is where I'm looking. Therefore, that is where it needs to be. But without further ado, we got a lot to talk about. We got a lot to go through, starting with some pretty fantastic pieces by these gentlemen this week and this month, whatever it is, whenever it is. I don't know when I am. It's fine. Who are we going to start with? Who do I want to start with? Everybody here. I'm going to everybody in the chat. Can we flood the chat with hand claps? Because everyone turned in their pieces like a week ahead of time.
Yes,
no, I don't have anybody. I don't have anybody to make fun of this week and say, hey, I'm glad you managed to turn it in at 9 a.m. this morning. Like everybody did it like a week ago. This is fantastic. Yep. Like props to all y'all.
Yeah. It's really
artists who know how to work with deadlines. How about it?
What a thunk.
Who'd have thunk it, right? Artists can work within deadlines when they so choose. But you know what? I think we're actually going to start with Marcos's this month. I really like Marcos's. I think you guys will too. Let me make sure I'm grabbing the time lapse and not the PNG. There we are. Okay. Oh, look at that. Almost 6.5 minutes long. That's plenty of time for me to just let it roll through. I can speed it up a little bit as I so choose. Man, y'all are getting so good at this. All right, let's change the speed to we can do 1.2. And if I need to, actually, 1.5 is probably fine. And if we need to back it up, we can do that. But this is a good piece. And I think it's very thematic alongside one of the short stories that is part of our Saints and Sinners #1 anthology collection. Those of you who have not cleared that already, be sure to do so. I think at the time of recording, we're like 1.5K away from 200,000 in total sales on it, which is pretty freaking awesome. So that's great for our first anthology collection.
Yes.
But we'll chat more Saints and Sinners near the end of the show, because what we're going to do right now is we're going to take a look at Marcos's great work. So for those of you who are Ingrid Valdez fans, and if you were a Wilkins fan from Alpha Core 1, pour one out for your boy. Marcos, walk us through this one, buddy.
It's funny. This idea, I mentioned it on a previous stream. I was immediately going to do this because I was thinking about Wilkins from the start. But I actually went through like 3 different ideas. First, you saw she was on the side by a grave, but I thought it wouldn't make sense because you wouldn't be able to see the name on the grave and then or the tombstone, and then it'd be kind of weird because she was like standing over where he's buried. That's disrespectful. And I switched to the Alpha Core. Didn't ended up liking that either. And then we ended up on this one, which made more sense of having Ingrid more dramatic. I don't know. I wanted something more, I guess, dramatic like that because of the rain. I want to make it like a very
very moody.
The emotions, moody.
Yeah, it gives a very somber feel.
Yeah, because what she went through in Alpha Core with Wilkins, she had more like of a connection with him, and the way that she kind of like did like a misjudgment of him early on, and then what happened. She always felt so guilty after the events. I figured I wouldn't need to add Brian or Braxwell, so I focus on her. And I just wanted her to pay some respects. It's the thematic for the Memorial Day. And I thought about adding him like a bubble in the background, like a memory. She was thinking about him, but didn't end up thinking it would look good. So I removed it. I'm just like Andrew suggested, just pull the tombstone up a little further so it takes more of the negative space.
Do Andrew?
And, yeah. Me and Andrew working.
I'm picking up a thing or two from you guys a little bit here and there, maybe. One of these days, the Andrew sketch will be something better than a stick figure.
Yeah.
Yep. I decided to put her on a coat, just aside from the fact that it's raining, because also I wanted to make it seem like she, even though she still feels that regret and all that, she doesn't. It's like kind of like personal. She doesn't feel comfortable enough letting people know that it's her in public. Randomly in the cemetery, like she's not there yet, but just kind of keep that a little bit of anonymity on her. It's kind of hard given that she has the whips, the lassos, and all that. But
right,
wanted to give it like a mystery vibe. But it's like nobody's there; it's just her. But you know what I mean, though.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, give it that dramatic sense with the movement, the hair, the coat, to go along with the rain. And later on with the grass a little bit as well. I did a bit of gradient as well, what I usually do lately for these.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to add a little bit lighting, which I haven't been doing lately because of the grayscale. But I added lighting just to make it more look like she's got the wet armor.
Mm-hmm.
That effect comes across really well right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's
it actually feels like it's some type of material, like heavy, hard material, but flexible.
Yeah,
because their armor is kind of like it used to be all metal in the concept art, but then it turned a little more tight, so it's less bulky and I guess kind of like that.
Got you.
Add a bit of wind.
Which makes more sense, too, because with her being a wirecaster, she's got to be a bit more flexible, right? Mm-hmm. So she's got to have a suit that facilitates that necessary mobility that she needs to have.
Yeah, exactly. put some trees in the background and everything just to give it the finishing touch. I didn't know what to do at the background. I was thinking more like graves, maybe a fence or something, but it didn't make sense. I was like, too much detail in the background. Just added the trees and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And then to top it off, the quote, which was the last thing she said about Wilkins, and with a couple of pages at the end.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Like I love the whole like you really captured the emotion of, like you said, those that read that, the first half of Core, man, of what happened. And not just what happened, but it's still an aftermath. Like there's still stuff that's being processed, and people, including her, are still trying to deal with the events of what happened. Here's your protectors, trying to protect the city, and then, somebody who, they didn't know right away that he was an accept until later, and he's not even high level, but what he used, he was able to do what he was able to use what he had, and still, to the best of his ability, try to, stop it, and he did, he, for the most part, but at the cost of his life and stuff. So, and like you said, she took that personal. But yeah, I love like the whole gray tones, man. Like it feels like it's rainy. Feels like it's a rainy day. I would have loved if he did the more headstones. That would be kind of cool. Kind of like
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever been to some sort of like military burial.
Yeah.
Like Arlington,
Yeah.
and that was one of the things that always blew me away. Like my uncle was he served in the military, and when we buried him, it was like they have an Arlington cemetery type cemetery in Omaha, because that's where my dad's from, and it was amazing because every headstone's at attention, and they're spaced exactly the same, no matter where you look, whether it be a diagonal, whether it be, front, head on. So, but yeah, that's just a little additive. But yeah, other than that, man, like that, other than that, this is perfect, man. Like this is, I love, you can still see her coat through the grass, and I like how it's high grass too, almost like it's like, you can tell it's been growing for a while, he's just he's out there, kind of, I'm not gonna say remote location, man, but it's definitely he's been there for a while, which almost fits with the continuity of the first album core and stuff. So
Yeah.
good job, man.
It helps set up that kind of being in an enclosure or something like that, like kind of taken away from like the other stuff, right? Like you feel like you're there with Ingrid and she's kind of feeling alone, and the entire environment kind of shows that too, right? Not only the rain, which is like a classic thing to show that, but also like the environment is all like kind of somber around her.
Yeah,
it's really
There's kind of a
good.
feeling and vibe of isolation with it,
That
which comes across really well.
Like the rains. It's funny that I don't remember already who mentioned it. Like I think it was Kanan, like the armor thing. But as he was saying that, like you were adding like the small droplets of water, like streaming down.
Yeah, in fact,
that's
let me
just
back it up
insane.
to when he was doing that, because I really liked when he was adding those effects.
Those small touches.
Yeah, so right here when he's adding the streaks of the water droplets, going down her armor,
That's
like
so good.
that added so much pop and depth to the piece.
Yeah, really did.
He's got more on the face as well.
Yeah.
And I blurred it out a little bit, but yeah, I like doing the
very, very
wet
good.
effect.
Very good idea.
I didn't notice before. There's some on the hair here as well.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really good piece, brother.
When you went back and you took the trees out, dude, that put a whole different tone on it.
Yeah.
Like I almost wish you left it just open, with the headstone on the grass, and maybe some clouds in the background. I was like, dude, and like it lit up the whole. You guys know what I'm saying? Like it opened up the image even more. But yeah, he did so many things good, man. It's just like, dude.
I did have some on the coat, but they're a little bit harder to see. The water drops.
Yeah,
I got you.
But I really like the. We've been talking a lot about value, because in terms of editing, like some of our books are in the coloring stages where we can disclose pitch, but that I have talked about value a lot, because it's something that was banged in my head over the last few years when I started coloring, and now I'm trying to pay attention to it, like when to bring attention to what, and it's really good to see like the more contrast applied to Ingrid.
Yeah.
Then you can read like the tombstone and the rest, like takes this step back, I would say, like as the background, but makes everything easy to read. Like it's really good.
Thanks.
Yeah,
I really like this. Might be one of my favorite pieces that we've made, like easily. It's really good, like the mood, everything.
Yeah, the mood's great.
Made me want a grayscale mine. Like, Jesus, I should have done that. That was really good.
Excellent piece, Miko. Excellent
job,
piece.
Thanks.
All right, let's go with where's Igor's. We're gonna do Igor's next. Those of you who have read The Great War of Separation, #1, should enjoy this piece. I, as somebody who has read fairly far forward in our universe, I like the Silman family a great deal, and for numerous reasons. And I love anytime one of our artists gets to do a piece that involves any one of them, whether it's Altona and Vassi like Kanan did, or this piece that Igor did this month. So let me share here. Boop. Cool. All right.
Yes.
Yeah, my man Jacob.
Jeez,
All right. Walk us through it, brother.
This is actually funny because it started like I blacked out everything and I wanted like a high contrast thing where you would see like mostly black and then like kind of Silman behind it, and then I changed my mind. But I started this because Kanan shared a piece by an artist that I love on Instagram, Sean Gordon Murphy.
Oh yeah.
And I was looking at it and I was like, and this guy's still like the GOAT, man. It's really hard to compare. And I was thinking about like the way he uses texture, the blacks on the page, like the masses, and hatches the form. Like it's really simple.
Yeah.
Maybe and then it reminded me of that book that he did with Mark Millar. Oh, I don't know how you say his name.
Something. Ghost.
Yeah, the Chrononauts.
Okay.
Yeah, right. So everything about that, like the shape language, everything made me want to kind of add a little bit of like Sean Gordon Murphy to my drawing, like simplify some stuff.
I got you.
Yeah, so I was like, I'm gonna be minimalistic about everything that I can. I'm gonna use a lot of blacks, try to convey like kind of a somber tone.
Gotcha.
Some hatches just to add texture. I'm gonna try my best, and then this is what I did. I managed to do with that in mind. Like it's nowhere near what he does, but I really wanted to study something and try to apply it to my drawings. And I'm trying to stylize my drawing a little bit more.
I got you.
So I've been looking at those artists for the past like year or so. It's really I started with him with the eyes closed, and then because I wanted it kind of be like a prayer or something like that. His remembering his family back but it kind of looked like he was sleeping. I was like,
Yeah.
falling asleep on the job, and wartime probably a bad idea. Yeah.
so I was like, yeah, that's not a good idea to sleep with a rifle in your hand.
I think what you actually, I don't want to say this. So if his head was more tilted downwards and his eyes were
Right.
closed, then having his family in the background gives the vibe of he's thinking of them, right?
Yeah,
But
true.
with his head tilted kind of back, it's kind of like, you know, you start falling, dad starts falling asleep in the chair, right? Like,
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like he was because of the pose and the way I wanted to like kind of, because you draw someone from like a worm's view, like kind of from below or a low perspective.
Yeah.
And you kind of want to try and nail the head because it's one of the hardest angles to draw someone. It's from below, especially women.
Yeah, the jaw.
Yeah, this part here is kind of tricky. Everything like kind of skews back, like the ears. So you want to take the opportunity to actually do that, like whenever you can. At least I do. I try to draw that because it's one of the hardest poses for me to get. And I didn't want him to, but that was a good fix. That's a good idea to convey what I wanted initially. But yeah, kind of end with stoic angry face or something like that.
Love it, man. Okay.
Sorry,
I'm taking the detail on the rifle.
Yeah, me too.
Especially on the sight, on the scope.
That gun looks great.
I've drawn a lot of weapons throughout my career. I drew a comic for an independent writer for like 3 years. And it was about a SWAT team, and everyone had a different weapon. So I had to choose.
You drew a lot of guns.
Yeah, so I drew a lot of guns, like for almost a year or something. And everyone had like their own personalized versions of that gun, right? Like, so it would be a rifle or a submachine gun or something like that, and it had like a different attachment, and I had to remember everyone's weapon different. So I looked at like a ton of different guns because rifles tend to look the same over a period of time. So when you're drawing comics, you want them to look different, right? Like you don't want everyone to have an M4 and like just be there. Like you want rifles that stand out, or like shotguns, automatic shotguns or something like that. So I went through that process, and then like
they're not easy.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah, they're not. But
there are a lot of mechanical pieces, and especially actual gun enthusiasts will take one look at a gun, but if it's incorrect, they will let you know.
I actually changed his finger because of that. Like he had his gun and the trigger, and I was like, oh, God damn, someone's gonna complain about it.
It's funny, man. You always that's always in the back of my head, but I always think of sometimes if I do put the finger there on the actual trigger, it's usually if it's like smoking. So that means you're fired.
It's been fired. Yeah.
But like you said, gun etiquette, man. Like the finger should always be, and in the 90s, man, they didn't care. It was just like,
nope.
Exactly. Yeah. So everyone's ready to fire.
People held their guns like this with their fingers already on the triggers, ready to go. They could be chilling in the coffee room. It didn't matter.
Half them guns weren't even real anyway, man. It was like boxes with like several barrels on it. But
looking at you, Cable and Deadpool.
Right, exactly. Cable has several, but
Spawn, like just.
Exactly. No, this is good, Igor, man. Like I love the rifle, love the pose. Even his expression, man. Like, he has I'll say that 1,000-yard stare, but it's just almost like it's the resolve of I'm in military, and but you can still tell he's thinking about something, and then having, like you said, having the image of his family, in the faint background, and then also family and country, family and duty. You got the White House. So that was a good touch, man. Like, you got to do what you got to do. And he's your soldier. Like, he's not type of, that really, I won't say, he's not a blind soldier, the person who just goes by whatever he's told. But at the same time, he values his duty. He respects his duty. Like you said, the people who've read the First Great War, you understand that. Like, I'm a soldier. This is what I do. and so he has the resolve, and you can tell even in his pose and his face. Very well done. Love the young Isam and Altona, man, and his wife. So.
I would actually redo like Avery's face, but yeah, given that it's small, I'm just like, yeah, okay, that's okay.
I love Harriet.
Yep.
Go ahead, Mark.
I was just gonna say Avery kind of looks like he's got a little mustache already.
Yeah, exactly. Because from afar, like the top lip kind of look. So I had to change it. That's exactly what I would change. You see, I just noticed that type of stuff. I'm like, yeah, from afar, it looks like it has, especially like if you have it as a wallpaper. I'm gonna have to change that for sure. But yeah, this was fun. Go ahead.
Yeah, I like how at the bottom of Jacob, you rendered his like the way he's disappearing. It almost looked like a city, almost like the shape of
the skyline. Yeah.
Skyline, yeah.
But also,
kind of dope.
I took it as, or interpreted it as a kind of like a torn flag, a tattered flag.
Yeah,
that's my idea. I initially that was my idea. I thought about like having a battlefield behind him, but I wanted the family, because that's the thing that moves him the most, I feel.
Yeah, his family and his duty to his country.
Yeah,
so you got the
kind of
Texas Capitol building there. And,
yeah. So that's my idea, that like he has his resolve, but there is something that's waiting for him back home.
Yeah.
So he has like those two things that you kind of have to.
Assuming he makes it home.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I can't wait for people to read the next because we get to flesh out the character more, because that's one of the reasons why we like some characters so much, and they haven't showed up like kind of at all. It's really cool.
Remember, guys, this is Chuck Dixon writing this, so he's not afraid to. We were just talking about Wilkins earlier with Marcos's piece. He's not afraid to kill off characters. Solari's Texas XSEP unit could be called the KIAs. Who knows? We'll see. Great piece, brother. Great piece.
Thanks. One last thing. I encourage every artist to do this. Like, if you have a piece because the thing that moved me about this piece was like I was saying, Sean Gordon Murphy. But the thing that made me like the character the most, that was striking for me, was a single panel in Jack's book, like the First Great War, where he's walking in uniform out of the house. The left part.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. That's so good. Like that single panel made me want to know more about the character. So if you have something, if something hits you like that, I kind of try to investigate that more, because you might find something that you use in your own artwork or story, like if you're a writer, for instance. Because there is something that's connecting to you. Maybe you don't know yet, but that scene alone, like, it was so well drawn. I know about the shadows and everything. I was like, I need to learn something from this. I'm taking note.
Jack has many of those make you thinks.
He is so good with light and shadow, man.
His Brian Solari, man, where he's sitting at the desk. That first shot where the shadows and stuff. Like, I want to do it.
Seriously. Yeah, his Brian is so freaking good.
Man.
So freaking good. Great piece, brother.
Speaking of Brian.
Speaking of Brian, yeah. How about Brian Solari, Kanan? How about it? How about him?
Yeah.
How about him? All right. Bring him up here. Oh, here's perfect length. Good. All right. This will be easy. Y'all made my life easy this month with the time lapses. I love it. All right. Speaking of Solari.
So yeah, man, like this, he, when I think of Soldier, I always think of him, his past, I said those who've read The Great War, you understand. If it had a title, I was calling it Echoes of War. And it's like his past as a soldier framed why he is and who he is, and still framed why he is and who he is. It's still unfolding, as his past is being revealed, but his it's because of a lot of those events why he is the way he is with Alpha Core. And even you see his interaction with, people who read Yaira, and his interaction with Stefania, and, really wanting to be that kind of mentor, and giving her a chance and things like that. But at the same time, duty first, as Alpha Core, we XYZ, this is our job. So, still kind of that military mindset. But with this, because the Great War, as it's unfolding, as we're reading it, it was such an impact and resonated so strongly. I really wanted to kind of show like he's basically reminiscing, the individuals that may have passed, still are alive, maybe dealing with PTSD kind of thing. Like, any soldier, man, like a lot of them. I remember there was a guy I was talking to. He's like, after you serve, you got to find something else to do. You got to find, get into music, whether it be art, whether poetry, whether it's something, because a lot of times it's hard to turn that off. So they usually get into law enforcement or become firefighters, or, even become, lifetime, military, what do you call them?
Commanding officers or officers, or
trainee, officers, drill sergeants, stuff like that. Because, like you said, it's hard to just step back into that civilian life. So, it's not surprising that, Brian becomes who he is with Alpha Core. It's like, there's, as the story unfolds of Great War and all the things that happened and, have yet to happen that, people will begin to find out. It's like, man, like like he goes through one of the biggest like changes, as a character, because, and that's just, it's no NDA stuff with soldiers. You see so much. The longer you serve, the more people you see come and go.
Yeah.
Whether they leave the military, whether they pass away, whether they, various reasons why, people come in and out of your life as a soldier, man. And you, a lot of times when you're in the heat of that, you don't have time to mourn or think about it. A lot of times it hits you in a wave. It can hit all at once. Once you get back, stateside, it's just like, oh my God. Like, I remember there was a movie with Tobey Maguire, man, and he was a vet. And he didn't process it well. A lot of them come home and, they can't even relate to their families anymore. It's not everybody, but, you have those serious cases, man, where they've seen so much. And then a lot of times it's hard to really separate the soldier from the man. And because they train you to be a weapon, for the most part. I mean, that's your job. And like I said, the longer you're over there, the less connection you tend to have with who you were, outside of being a soldier. So, this I wanted to really show, like I said, the fallout of really how the Great War has affected him. And, you either choose to remain for what's right, or, sometimes people become the villain. It just depends, no spoilers, but, I mean, Brian but he's a soldier, man. He's a soldier. And, he showing in this image, man, I want to really show like the impact of his part that he had to play. And also, the things that he had to do that he may not have necessarily wanted to do. And I love how the trailer also always talks about, he's like, somebody needs to talk about what happened. Nobody wants to like, discuss it, man. But it's like the elephant in a room. Like this is what happened. It's like, so yeah, just really showing the emotion, man, of him. Like this is my job. I'm still that guy from the Great War, but at the same time, I'm also the leader of Alpha Core. This is my job, and I still have to protect. User failure is not what we do. That's military talk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Although, Alpha Core won, I kind of took an L.
Maybe a little bit of failure there.
But that's the beauty of when people see the next installment, which has already been thought about, that it's coming out, it's being worked on. He's gonna see the
Alpha Core 2 looks so
yeah. I mean, you're gonna see like how people are processing, like the entire team. So yeah. So like this was a fun piece. Like I said, I always love being able to play with shadows and lighting and things like that, man. I always go to my go-to bag, as you want to say, for inspiration, man. Mike Perkins, Mike Deodato Jr., Ivan Arias, like those guys they're like my go-tos. And so, each for different reasons. And so, of course, lighting and shadow, Mike Perkins is like God tier to me. Like he does it better than most people. Muscle, Ivan Arias, easy. So Mike Perkins, he's kind of like a combination of the whole shebang, man, rendering and hatching and stuff like that. So, but yeah.
I really love the to talk about light and shadow, all the folds and whatnot in the flag here and crinkles in the flag. Like it's really easy. I would assume as an artist, I wouldn't know anything about that. To like overdo it.
Yes.
on the folds of capes and clothing and things like that, right? So you want to make sure it doesn't look flat, but you also don't want to just be so over rendered and folded to where it's like if there's a design on it, you can't see it, right? Because everything would be way too pressed together.
Wrinkled, yeah.
You nailed it, man. It's a balance when using the style, man. Like you have to still let the line breathe. I remember somebody said, if you squint and still see, the different tones and the differentials between what's the whites and the blacks, you're doing a good job. But if everything was just muddled and messy, and sometimes people were heavy. I was heavy-handed. It's just like, so everything just looked heavy. And there's a time for that, but you have to know when to back off and let the line and the white breathe. Let it, and then use the darks and the shadows and stuff as accents, just to define shape and texture, and mood as well. But for the most part,
also to help with your own work, right? Like, because if you're gonna detail everything, if you're gonna shadow everything, it's gonna look muddy and messy. It's also gonna take like forever.
Yes, that also.
Like 8 days to color a cape.
Yeah, I mean it's always a catch-22, man. Of making sure that quality, but at the same time, you still want to get the piece done. At a nice clip, especially when you're on deadlines. So you learn to render what you can, and then sometimes, man, the other stuff you just hide in shadow. Because you can use shadow as a framing device. Like it's like the silhouette sometimes is just as strong as a rendered piece. And you mentioned Salman, in that part of a Great War, and it was a strong shadow, strong silhouette image where it didn't need a lot of hatch marks, or it didn't need a lot of like cast shadow or anything. Like it was a mood inspired image, and like I said, that strong silhouette was enough.
Helps tell the story. So it does everything. Like saves time, the striking image. Helps tell the story, set up the mood for the scene. So it does everything like perfectly. Yeah, it's very good. I really like the piece, man. Obviously, like
dude, the star.
I love your story.
Yeah,
the star in the background, the details on it, crazy.
Thank you. I was trying to make it like it was metal, like a nod to his stars.
And that's something we talked about.
Yeah,
what was it last time with? Was it last time with Igor's piece of Braxwell with the car, and how he had the impact, layout of or what Avery's body had hit right there, and how he made it look like it was metal that got impacted as opposed to it looking like, glass or whatever the material. That applies here where you did it. It feels like I look at that and I'm like, that was a metal thing, right?
For sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I almost feel like somebody punched it.
Maybe he did. Maybe he was a little pissed off.
Yeah.
I like the nod. It kind of nods, like you said, to his story when he threw the star at the. It kind of represents him, like what he's been through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
With the bullet wounds, especially. But
I like Brian.
Yeah.
He's probably one of my favorites, man. As far as like Alpha Corman, like his, he's really just like he's just a soldier, man. Like there's elements to him, man, but for the most part, man, he's a guy that had to serve. He just carried it over to Alpha Corps. So
yeah. He falls into he's a character who falls, at least power set wise, to a degree. He's got the super strength and super flight, right? So he falls into that general like Superman archetype type thing, right? Your Hyperions, your, all those guys, right? But characterization, him as a human being could not be more different from all of them. He's a completely different character. Sure, he's got the black hair. Sure, he's got the, the fair skin. He's got the super flight and super strength, but him as a person is so drastically different from any of those. And it's really refreshing to see. And then on top of him as a character being so different, the setting that he's put in is so different, right? Him being a part of the police force, that's so different.
And you mentioned the setting. I was thinking about one of the reasons why I did it too is I did it this pick like this, and now that won't be long. But this is Memorial Day celebrating within what happened in the Rippaverse. You know what I mean? Like, I'm saying, like it's tied to the Great War. Same thing with yours, Igor, and yours as well, Marcos. Like, it's universe-based stuff, which just makes it even more unique. That is essentially, the history. A lot of the history of the Rippaverse. The Great War is had a lot to do with a lot of the reasons why things are the way they are now. So I wanted to really play on that. Not reality, but based on what's happened so far within the Rippaverse. So
which is great, because you mentioned that, and I remember watching one of your roundtables where we were talking about the Great War is clearly political, right? Yes, but inside the universe of the river, right?
Yeah,
it's world specific.
Yeah, it makes politics the subject of something inside our universe, which is something that I think a lot of authors get wrong and got us to where we are today, where they feel like their politics are more important. Like, if you think about how Eric created all these characters and they're so different from each other, like that alone shows a great respect for the writing, where every single one of these characters have a voice, and they all have purpose and questions and the fears and everything, trauma that surrounds them, right? So there's a lot going on, and but they are all very different. They have their own superpowers, but more than that, they have their own weaknesses as characters and flaws as human beings, or wherever Yaira is from. But they all have their own quirks, and I love Solar because of that. Because when I first you immediately would think, oh yeah, this is the current Superman or evil Superman. That's how the comics are nowadays, right? You have Homelander and whatever. But then he's entirely different. I haven't seen this version of superpowers being in check and at odds with the police, being part of the police. So everything, there's so much that can go on. I always it always brings me back to what Chuck says, where superhero stories are about logistics, and Alpha Core is the perfect story for that, because they are inside the system. and you can see how the system operates regarding accepts and everything.
Yep.
So it's very interesting. Yeah, great piece again.
Thank you, man.
Lines,
Chef's kiss, all of you.
yeah, it's very good. The
All right,
way you
let's-
control line weight is insane.
Oh yeah,
Thank you, man.
there's no question about that. All right, why it'd be nice if this just like let me.
Kind of funny. We almost accidentally, each of us made a piece of a single alpha core member. Almost. I did Ingrid.
Oh,
Aiden did
yeah.
Brian.
I should have done
He did
Braxwell,
Braxwell last month.
Yeah.
Oh,
would
God.
I try
funny.
not to repeat, but it would be like horsemen all over the place like that.
Yeah.
Every place is going to be a horse.
I think Igor is Hector's second biggest fan, only behind Caro,
Yeah,
Caro.
only behind Caro.
and just in a different capacity. All right, guys, a poll will be going up in the live chat or the premiere stream live chat, whatever it's called. I don't know. I'm not a YouTuber. These are the 3 pieces for you to vote on. Who will win this month? Will it be Marcos's with Ingrid at the grave site of Wilkins? Pour one out for Wilkins. Is it Igor's, Jacob Stillman? Great piece. Or will it be Kanan with the somber and kind of almost in a memorial mindset for Solari? You decide who the champion will be. We're gonna start figuring out a way to like visually implement something to where there's something that we have on screen that's like, I don't know, like a title belt or something, like in the video camera box, whatever it's called. I don't know. Again, I'm not a YouTuber. Of whoever the
overlay
champ is. Yeah.
Yeah.
The overlay. Yeah, that. Look at you. You're more
What
of a
he means is
YouTuber.
a champion belt for Igor, because
Yeah, right. Well, you do like they do in wrestling, man.
Sometimes
like,
they personalize it.
yeah, they always put the little whoever won, man. They put their little name on the little plates on the side, So yeah,
Maybe we'll have to put our heads together, come up with a fun design for that. People in the chat, let us know if you think that'd be a fun idea, and maybe we'll do it anyway. Because we think it would be a fun idea. Sometimes, like, you know what? I'm doing this for me.
Yeah.
All right. So with, again, as I said earlier, nobody emailed me any fan art pieces this month, so we don't have a fan art piece to present. So we will move on to our discussion topic. And I think this is actually a pretty fun topic for this month, and something that is pretty topical, as we have 3 artists here who have completely different styles from one another. Because sometimes you have artists where it's clear like they're working within a similar style set, right? It's like, okay, yeah, they still have uniqueness to them, but you can put them side by side and you can say, okay, yeah, there's similar inspiration here, right? But each of you have vastly different styles, which makes this the perfect topic, I think, for this month. And that is the topic of character design and how individual artist takes operate within those. So what's especially interesting here is not only do we have 3 different and very unique art styles, but one of the artists here is usually the first person to draw a lot of these characters, right? Because he's the one, Marcos, obviously as a concept artist, he's the one who comes up with the designs, right? And so he's drawing them in his style, and then he gets to see the adaptation of that from different art styles, right? Whether it's Joe, whether it's Kanan, whether it's Igor, whether it's Jack, whether it's Will, whether it's Deborah, and whoever else, right? So I think that's a really fun discussion piece. So guys, tell me, we'll end with Marcos. Tell me what your approach is and what your line of thought is when you're looking at a concept piece, whether it's here at the Rippaverse or if you've done work elsewhere, looking at a concept piece. So assuming you're not the person who came up with the design, looking at a concept piece, and what is going through your head when you're trying to adapt that design into your style? What are things that you think about in terms of what do I add? What do I take away? What do I tweak here and there to make it look like this is something that I'm drawing as opposed to somebody else drawing it? Kanan, I'll start with you.
Okay. I know, for me, just with kind of the way I approach, my style, adding elements of realism. So, I usually try to take, like, say, a concept Marcos did, for example, I just use Brian Solari because he's on the screen, but his suit, for me, I like to, how do those pieces move and shift in a kind of like a realistic scope, almost like if anybody's watched in the past the Arrowverse, the WB, stuff like that, basically that's what they did, taking comic style uniforms and making them practical. Like you said, some things for that per se works in reality, some stuff doesn't, so they'll pull things off, they'll add things here, tweak this, that. But, for this, since it's essentially art, it's just, for me, making it kind of fit my style, but still trying to hold true to the integrity of, what the concept is. Like, I think the only thing that, you usually see, for me, for example, like gloves, I'll do the stitching, on the fingers. I'll try to do, if there's a stitch or a seam on the pants, you'll see that on a lot of my art. Buckles and hinges, you'll see the clasp, kind of like where it connects, kind of stuff like that. So to let you know that it's actually a hinge and not just one piece. Of course, when it comes to the capes and things like that, or cloth, I try to be, as accurate as possible with where the folds, fall in line based on weight distribution, person's body type, if they're skinny, if they're bulky, fat, short, the whole male, female, and always, of course, with this, of course, you see his muscles, but a lot of times, like, I love how individuals like Alex Ross will draw, per se, like, for example, Superman. He draws, or he'll paint, in this case, he'll paint his characters where, I mean, we all know Superman is muscular. You look at, an artist like I mentioned before, Ivan Rios or Dan Mora, versus someone like an Alex Ross, where he focuses on the fact that, yes, Superman is big, he's bulky, he's muscular, but he's also wearing clothes. So you're not going to see the definition that's like in my Brian Solari picture. You're not going to really see that in an Alex Ross painting. Now, people do that to add definition. They do that to add dynamicism to it. I try to be kind of like in the middle, still show enough muscles and structure to, to let people, know it looks cool, but then at the same time, I know if it's like he has seams, where his body folds and, things like that. I try to add those little elements too. And as far as like the look of the character, like their face, I usually try to reference it. Like I'll ask myself, like, who do they look like? Like, I know I think with Ingrid, I actually most of for the most part, man, like I try to stay close as much as possible to the characters, but like I know with the Brian Solari I mentioned before, he always reminds me of Jack Dempsey, and so based on the crew cut that he has, the hair, if you look at old photos of Jack Dempsey, you'll be like, man, he does look like Brian Solari. He was a product of that time, and that's one of the cool things. I feel like Brian is, even though he is a today's character, he's kind of like a throwback to like the 40s. Like the old school soldiers, in the military, like you said, the crew cut, the buzz with the hair combed back, and like the 50s, 60s kind of type of guy, and that's kind of his that's kind of my approach when I draw him.
He's always very clean cut.
Yeah, very clean cut. It's a soldier. He's a soldier. Like so. It's like and that like I said, if you remember, you ever watched any of the old movies and Leave It to Beaver and all these that was the time. That was that era. Everybody, hairstyles kind of repeat. So it was like that fade, that he had, and that's kind of like that's literally like the 40s, 50s, 60s. And so I love that era anyway, man. So but like I say, it just depends on the character. Like I said, I try to always, and I kind of learned that from a guy by the name of Rags Morales when he did this book called Identity Crisis. And in the back of the comic book, he has faces of all the people that he referenced. It was like all these actors from like 20s and 30s. I was like, man, I didn't know you could do that. I was like, oh my God. And so I kind of adopted that kind of mindset whenever I approach a character. Who do they look like? Okay, he kind of looks like this person. Oh man, he kind of looks, so, in my head, I got like a Rolodex of faces of people, and I just kind of compile them all together, man. So, but strong concepts, shout out to Marcos, all these render and lead to strong characters. So, he having his concepts, man, make it easy. So, yeah, that's my approach.
Excellent. Igor, what about you, brother?
Yeah, it really does make it easy to have the concept and think about that. And I feel like when you first asked the question, I was thinking like, yeah, we all approach it the same way. But the more I thought about it, like it's really funny to see how many variations of like Brian Solari we get, or Brax or something like that, because the different artists are gonna focus on different parts of the characters, or are gonna be interested in showing different things, right? So, like Kanan was mentioning, he likes to draw like the scenes and everything, and I kind of like doing that to a certain degree. I'm not as like precise about the realism of said stuff, because I have like I think the skill and the time it takes ends up being something that you take into account and you have to finish it, and it's not as second nature as it is like for Kanan. So I try to like hint at it, but maybe I don't do such a good job with that. But then when it comes to certain other aspects, I try to be as detailed as I can, like weapons or something that I'm always looking at and trying to figure out a way to portray in interesting ways. So we have characters that haven't showed up that have swords and have other weapons that are kind of different. And as an editor, I'm always paying attention to how an artist draws that, because that needs to be perfect for me. Because that's something that I always paid attention as a kid.
Yeah.
And like I was reading, I read One Piece since I was like 11 years old, still going on.
I was going to say it's still going. So
I'm 36 now. Jesus Christ. But yeah, Oda was always perfect with his weapons, even though he has like a stylized style, like a very cartoony style. He's always perfect with the sword hilts and everything. So that's something that I always paid attention to. And I think artists are drawn to different things. Like we're going to be drawn to certain aspects of a character, shapes and forms. Like I know, like just from looking at so much artwork from Kanan, that he loves like triangles, which are like powerful compositional tools, like in terms of shadows and everything. And I try to incorporate that into my work as well, especially since we started working together, and I got to see more of his work, because that's it has direction, has action, has like everything that you need in a shape, more than like a square that's boring or something like that. So but yeah, to me, like taking the concept is always about like what's the most interesting aspect of this character for me, and then I try to enhance that into my work. So one thing that I really like about our characters is the different ways the powers work. So whenever I'm drawing someone, I try to think how is the pose that this character is gonna have. How imposing is it gonna be? Like the reason I like Horseman, because I feel like he's gonna be raw about his approach. If we saw him like in action, he would be like, the animation did a great job with that, where he's like, there is no wind up. It's just like the punch and then the next punch, and then I kind of reminded me of a Jet Li movie where he was Unleashed. I think that's his name. Where he was fighting a different, like that movie marked me because he was fighting completely different from his other movies, where he wouldn't stop hitting the guy like ever. Like he would start.
He was a lot more raw and brutal.
Yeah,
no.
And I kept thinking about that. Like you can portray certain aspects. Obviously, we can in comics the same way they do in animation and movies, but we still can like portray the way different characters act based on their powers. And that's something that you get from the concept art. If you look at like the concept art book, you can see the Marx took care to actually draw like ice unboxing. And so there is like powers here and there, and that is something that I actually asked him to do more, because I feel like that will help artists have creative ideas about how the powers work and what they can do. Because I feel like that's a very important part of the character. So that's kind of how I try to focus my work when I get concept art. But obviously, like everyone has their style and their goals to their goal to when it comes to like the straps for me are something that I draw in every character that has like braces, Kevlar or anything like that. I've done 1,000 times. Like I mentioned, drawing soldiers so many times. So military stuff kind of comes easy, and then if it's something else, you have to really think about that. I guess it depends a lot on where your references are at to what, like I was mentioning Jack's drawing, like what draws you, gets your attention is usually the stuff that you're gonna try to reproduce in your work. So you should study that not only as a reader but as an artist. Like pay attention to the stuff that clicks with you, because there is something there that you can use in your work, and that's really interesting to you. Like, can I mention The Sims? Steve McNiven is one of my favorite artists. Civil War was the first comic that I read from him, and the fact that he drew all the Sims for their uniforms, like, kind of stuck with me. Like, I'm like, oh, I have to kind of do this because it looks cool.
It does, man. Like you said, those, because it adds to the character, adds personality to the character, and lets you mentioned Marcos, the way you're doing the concepts to show some of those, action and motions and stuff, because it not only does it show the movement of the character, but it also shows the character itself. Its personality is what I was trying to say. So you get the way they move, the way they shift, the way they carry themselves. You look at Lillian versus Michael Copper versus really said Brian Solari, versus like the Horseman. He's literally a battering ram. It's just punch till you can't punch no more. Keep shooting until it stops moving. Kind of thing. That's kind of like his mindset. He's like a whirlwind. As a force of nature. Versus Bloodruth. Which is, it's more magic and arcane. So you have those moments where she attacks, but at the same time, there's almost a finesse to it because she has to summon, magic and things like that to actually make it, conjure it up first and then project it. So, her actions and stuff are a lot different. So.
Yeah, it's super interesting noticing the difference, because I work with all three of you as well as with our other artists that we have on the interiors, and seeing that different approach from each of y'all. And I love how much in depth Igor and Kanan, you went into like your mindset and the process of like, all right, so this is my style. This is the design for the character. I need to pair the two together. And what are the things that are about my about my style that I'm going to implement into this design when I draw him, her, or it, in the case of some monsters and whatnot. And Marcos, what about you? What about when you obviously you have a really unique perspective on this because you are the one who designs a lot of these characters initially. And so now you've heard Igor's and Kanan's approaches to adapting your fantastic designs into their styles. Was it like seeing your style and seeing it done by such a wide array of artists in terms of the styles that they utilize?
It's I mean, honestly, it's I don't know how to say it. It's kind of unnerving. Can you hear me well, by the way, just to make sure?
Yeah,
Double
I hear you clear.
blacked out. Hold on, there you go. It's funny because I was preparing what I was gonna say, and then all of a sudden everything's just shut down. Sorry, but
You're good, man.
You're good, man.
you were speaking earlier about Brian Kanan regarding the suit and everything, and it got me thinking how usually when I go into the concept art for Brian specifically, how it all started was that he was bulky, the super strong like armor that he would have with the cape, had little extra like extensions and all that, which wasn't really used at first. That's the type of stuff that I'm here for. You know, like Eric got me in. He was like, you got to design the characters, and don't worry if it looks different. It's gonna be always like that because you gotta wait for the interpretation of the characters by the illustrators himself, the artists of the main books. And it got me thinking. It's really it's such a great feeling because it's like you get to see like the idea you had, but you get to see how other people see it, like through their eyes in a way, you know. And the way that I approach it is it's just it usually involves some discipline and thinking about it like that. Like I'm not drawing, designing, and thinking about, you know, it's gonna be this way. It's gonna be set this to this like stone, and I'm gonna hate if anybody just changes or something like that. Nah, I go into it knowing and expecting for you guys to do your thing. You know what I mean? Like that's part of the job. When it comes to how I see and go through it all, I don't know if you guys noticed when it comes to characters specifically in these illustrations, I have a tendency to draw like characters with long limbs. This is some weird detail that I thought about, but something I've noticed that I kind of adopted into my style. I'm trying to fix it a little bit because even though it's stylized, I feel like sometimes I make it the limbs, the arms, and legs a little bit long, the necks. But you can kind of tell here also in this illustration here from the monthly prompt that I do things differently also than what I do in my concept art, which is usually less detailed. Which is kind of ironic because you would think concept art you got to do all the details necessary for the artist to.
You're thinking forward as to, you know, the individual interior artists or cover artists, whatever, they're going to kind of fill in their own gaps to adapt to their own style. And so I'm leaving here are some like important parts of the design, but then I'm leaving room for other artists' interpretation.
Also, if you add like thousands of details,
of course,
it's going to be a nightmare for any artist to follow because they're going to draw that character like 1,000 times in a book, right?
Like exactly. And I also mean just overall in the rendering, like in the concept art per se. When I go through it, everything what I have to do, what I go through for designing, I basically think about how to make it easier for you guys to understand. So I go with base colors, do a little bit of shading, and then specify any other like specific part of the, like let's say the suit has a very specific belt or a helmet that has specific details, a glove or something, or the powers showcase how sometimes I show them through a full piece, like Igor was suggesting, like we got to do more poses and stuff. But I usually just do like specific shots of the power being used, like the hand, the flying, or whatever, And yeah, usually that's how I just think about it. Just important details, put them there. Make sure that the design's easy to see, like understand, easy to interpret on their own. I usually leave a lot of room for you guys to interpret, and that's honestly that's kind of how it has to be fair, because that's my job. I wasn't here to draw super hyper realistic like illustrations for everything and just expect everybody to understand in all angles the characters and their details.
Yeah.
And,
yeah. Let's say you're working from a unique position because we're working from your concepts, but a lot of times you're working from people's words. So it's like you're literally forging the visual description of what they're talking about, and so it's amazing to see, just like you said, the level of concepts, man. It just you could say, well, I just interpret their words, dude. Like you have a hand in that. Like you give it shape, visual shape. So I mean, it like I said, it helps us do our job effectively as well. So yeah.
I also have
As
this
editors too, right? Like help us as editors to like kind of follow, because you learn the rhythms of every character. Like Marcus was talking about, like he lays down the main details, and then if there is like a belt or I don't know, a holster or something that has a little bit more detail in some artist's interpretation, that's fine. Like that's okay, right? But the main thing has to be there. Like there is a design that I keep coming back to concept art wise, and Marcus drew the tattoo of the character. I can't say who it is, but he took the time to actually draw it separate on a and I was like, yeah, that's very helpful, because I can see how that works in any angle, like any different thing.
I think there's a couple characters that I did that for, right? I did that for the Horseman one as well, the tattoo he has on the arm, and the one for Stefania. Stefania has some tattoos on her left side.
The tattoos, man. We love tattoos around here.
I was gonna say,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, I was just gonna add that part of my style, I forgot to mention, that's all, that I have a very cartoony style ingrained into my art, because growing up, I didn't grow up with a teacher per se. I used to draw based on what I saw in cartoons and some of the comics that I read, and then in college I ended up getting a mentor, and he helped me basically develop that cartoony style. And now I've been implementing that, mixing that in with semi-realism, which is what we have. And that really helped also solidify the type of style that you see me have, which is like a mix cartoon realism. Which is why when somebody says some hate comment, like saying this doesn't look appropriate or realistic, I'm like, that's kind of my style. That's the point.
Yeah, I don't have a realistic style. I don't know what you want from me. Like,
right. It works, man. It's just enough that it's just enough guide, and like you said, it's the foundational stuff. And like Igor said, in the editing process, when we check with other books, like there are things that always have to be there. You can have interpretive and artistic license, but there's certain things that have to be there. I know for a while, Yaira's height was an issue with a lot of artists. It's like Yaira is 6'3", guys.
Yeah, she a tall girl.
And you look at a WNBA player, and look at the body type. I was telling when I helped out Deborah based on the concepts. I was like, and I think you modified her since then, but she has a smaller head because she's tall.
Mm-hmm.
There's a certain build, where a woman at that size, they have a certain body type. I was like, and then not only that, but she's muscular. So she's not just lanky like a basketball player. She's freaking aerobic fit. muscular and that height. So I said Big Barda was a good example of that. She's Big Barda's bigger than Yaira, but that's an example of like a giant size, like female is like proportionally right. And so, so like you said, those things have to kind of be there because it's story driven, but you can tweak and adjust certain things, but I always think like the little things that Marcos added that a lot of people still don't add with the Irish. She has freckles.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't draw it.
Yeah, freckles. Yep.
I'm guilty of that a lot.
Yeah.
Marcos has reminded me of that so many times.
Yeah. Nobody remembers pretty much. It's kind of funny. And Marcos has been really good also about like, because you talk about the way that different suits look and things like that, different materials, right? So like, hey, this type of material that this suit is should always look super shiny, should always look very metallic. That's information for both the line artists in terms of if they decide in the inking phase or for the inker, how much black to use there, right, to showcase that level of shine. And it's also important for the colorist, right, to inform them of like, hey, flat colors aren't the way here because this is a metallic material or a very high shine or almost chrome material or whatever you want to call it, right? As opposed to how something that's got more of a matte, maybe there's more of a Kevlar type of material, right? And those are important details that Marcos is good about writing into the descriptions on the concept art pieces that he does. And that's super helpful and informative to maintaining continuity within the interiors of the books, right?
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you guys. That was a fantastic discussion. I really enjoyed that.
Really good question. Yeah.
That might be one of my favorite just kind of discussion pieces thus far, if not my favorite one. Quick community shout outs as always to the Thinkening, RippaGuy, Velvet Room Publishing, so many guys that chill in our Discord and hang out and I chat with on a day-to-day basis. Mock, Sparrow, there's so many of y'all. You guys are so appreciated. You have no idea how fun and exciting it is to see you guys genuinely engaged and enthused all the time with what we're doing. We've even got people now who are creating accounts that are like named after our characters, right? There's a Zaylan account out there now. There's a Dokuan account out there now, right? We've had a Darren Fontano at least on YouTube for the Darren one's hysterical. He's a schmuck in the chat as he rightfully ought to be. It's a ton of fun to watch. You guys are not only the reason we're able to do this and the reason why we do this, but you're why it's so much fun because we see you engaged and we see you having a good time. Because this is comic books, man. It's supposed to be fun. And I hope and pray that we get to all have fun together for many, 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 many years to come. That is the goal always. Quick updates on active collections. Saints and Sinners #1, which is our first anthology collection. If you haven't pre-ordered that already, the link will be down below. I'll also have it in the chat. It is like just shy of 200K right now as of recording this. In fact, it's about $500 away from 200K. So I'm sure by the time this episode airs, we will have crossed that. So thank you so much for all the support that you've shown. This is a very important book to us, not only because it's our first anthology, but because it's something that is setting a precedent for allowing new writers and new creatives a shot at like kind of testing their mettle and showing what they can do. And it's cool for the fans because y'all get the opportunity to maybe meet one of your next new favorite characters. So now not only do we have the Rippazines where we're testing out new characters and stories, but now we have these anthology stories as well. And hopefully this continues to do well and we can justify doing more of them down the road and testing out even newer writers and, creative teams. Who knows who may pop up in the next one. I think it's just a fun idea overall and only helps to grow and inject more life into the comic book space, specifically the indie sphere. So thank you guys for that. Horseman #1 is I think by the time this airs, it will only have a couple of days left, few days left. Right now, there's 8 days left in Horseman number 1. We're at a little over 11,000 books sold, and we're creeping up on 350,000 in sales. You guys have been ridiculous with Horseman. He is clearly a fan favorite character and one of our strongest performers to date. And I mean, it's Chuck and Joe. I don't know what you want. It's like, I'm slightly biased because Chuck is my hero, and every single project that he and Joe are on together, they get better together because they're tightening that bond and working relationship, so they play off each other even more. And Yaira 3 is at 6,100 books sold and just shy of 200K as well. So thank you guys for all of the support you're doing on that. Mighty Golden Patriot over on Ripasend, that's sitting around right now as of this recording like 85,000. So we're almost at that 100,000 mark, which is fantastic. This has been very successful. Thank you so much for all you guys' support on that as well, and for everything that we have coming up for Ripasend. And be on the lookout for more.
Yeah,
wink soon. Kanan knows what I'm talking about. Kanan knows what I'm talking about, and I'm so excited. NDA, sorry y'all.
Yes.
You know what I am. And one final thing, you guys participated recently in the zine survey. There was an article that went out last night, again as of the recording for this episode, that was written by Caro, that goes through and breaks down a lot of the results from that survey. Thank you to everybody that participated in that, because you are helping us shape and refine and evolve the zine as we go forward. And we know you guys want more zines. There are more on the way. I can promise you that. You will certainly get more zines this year. So look forward to those, because the stories that are going to be in those, I think people will have some fun with. They'll be so different from anything y'all have seen. Yeah. So look forward to that. Guys, thank you so much for such a fantastic discussion. Obviously, thank you for all the fantastic pieces. But the discussion piece was something that I had a ton of personal fun with. So I'm a little biased, and I appreciate you guys on there. Those of you who are artists out there, here it is. If you stuck around, make sure you email the piece to me, Andrew@Rippaverse.com. This coming month's prompt is going to be a Zaylin versus prompt. So do Zaylin versus whoever. Doesn't matter who. Don't be messed up and be Zaylin versus Vassy.
Yeah.
Or do that, but like Vassy's just so much of a sweetheart that he turns into a big old teddy bear or something like that, right? Because she's just so gosh darn cute, right? Whatever it is you do, email those pieces to Andrew@Rippaverse.com. Those will be due, we'll say June 20th. All right, because we tend to record these episodes around, but after the 20th, usually 20th and the 22nd is usually where we tend to record these, and then we air them later on in the week or within a week of that. So guys, you heard it here. Zaylin versus whoever or whatever. Could be a monster. Make it up. I don't care. Email it to Andrew@Rippaverse.com by 6/20, June 20th. All right. Make sure you guys are subscribed to all of our channels, whether it's the YouTube channel, whether it's all our social media channels. Make sure you guys consider signing up for the Rippaverse membership. I did just say you have more Rippazines on the way. You get a free copy of the standard edition cover of each new Rippazine that comes out if you are just a $5 a month member. So it's great value on top of all the other things that we're adding to that service. So make sure you jump on that. Make sure you like and share this out on the socials. Make sure you guys are checking out and supporting all the active collections. Right now, that's Mighty Golden Patriot, Horseman #1, Yaira #3, Saints and Sinners #1. Who knows what's coming next and when? Well, I know, but y'all don't know. You'll find out. Guys, as always, You're the greatest fans in the world. It's not even close. We appreciate you. We love you. Thank you for all of your support and allowing us to do what we do and allowing us to have so much fluff and fun doing it.
Fluff and fun. Yes,
Fluff and fun. I'm not gonna give Jordan a need to beat me out or add the dolphin noise. I'm gonna leave those to Marcos. Foul mouth over here. You kiss your mother with that mouth.
One time, really?
All right, guys, you're the greatest. Be sure to tune in next time for another episode of Ctrl+Z. Until then, God bless and Godspeed.
Peace.
Peace out.